Hey everyone, welcome back to the Epic Investor Podcast. Today's topic is going to be the freedom formula. Freedom is not accidental, it's engineered. And the formula is simple, but it's powerful. Capital and time equals freedom. I think that most of us have the opportunity here to identify areas in our lives, both family and in business, where freedom is actually going to open up opportunities to pursue those things that we're called to do. And with that, we'll dive right in. Excited about today's topic. You know, this freedom formula is really important as we identify opportunities for everyone to find their freedom of purpose. There needs to be some kind of a formula or an approach to how to achieve that. And I feel like this is going to resonate with people because they probably feel like they can't. I mean, have you ever had a moment where you feel like, oh, that sounds nice, but I can't fathom how to achieve freedom right now at work? I really wanted to dive right in and talk about an experience I had in 2021 and 2022. You know, protecting names, I won't use names or locations, but this gentleman, he had come to me. He's like 62 years old. He had run a business for 40 years. He had sold it previously, and the person bought it and ran it to the ground. And so he came back in and bought it back from the person and, you know, jumped back into his career. I actually met with his wife first, and she said he has not taken a vacation in 40 years because he loves what he does. But they want freedom. They want the opportunity to go see their kids and their grandkids and have a life. And the gentleman I worked with, he really enjoyed like cigars, and he had a cigar room at his house. So he would read books and everything. But his wife was looking for more, right? She's the one that wanted freedom. It brings me to a couple of topics about the freedom formula. Like, what does it look like and what does it require? And I think first, you've got to identify that freedom requires capital and it requires time, right? Without capital, or in this case, if you're a business owner, revenue. And one thing I love is sales fixes everything. If you can go and get more sales, does it not solve all the problems? Mm-hmm. Like, when was the last time you had sales and you were mad about it? I can't think of a single time. We sat down and identified first that they had the capital that they needed to be successful. That he wasn't in a position where he was grinding to make revenue just to keep his business floating. They were very profitable. He had just got into a habit. He had got into this rut of, I've got to be in front of customers. I've got to be doing the bids. I've got to be the one sending it out to them. I've got to be the one on the project making sure it gets done. Second component to freedom, besides capital, is time, right? You need time in order to have your freedom. So we had to help this gentleman pull away from all of those things that he felt obligated to be on. He had a team of 12 people. And I said, why don't you let them do their job? Why don't you let that person be the project manager? Why don't you let that person handle your billing? You know, side note here, he stood up and walked out of the room mad. And I looked at his wife and I'm like, did I say something wrong? She said, no, he just gets like this. He walks back in about 10 minutes later. It was a long 10 minutes. And he said, okay, I'm going to trust you. Let's do this. About a month later, they bought a home out of state, and they now live in that home 2 weeks every month. They go away from work so that they can travel and have some time for them. I mean, they're in their mid-60s. They're looking to sell their business in the next few years, but they wanted to get a jump start on retirement. You know, that story has always stuck with me because I feel like when business owners can achieve that level of freedom, is that not the American dream? Is that not what everybody wants? Mm-hmm. That is where they have the opportunity then to dive into those things. And I found that this gentleman, he then started helping his employees excel in their careers. You know, people were able to go and actually leave. They went to other careers because of the experience that they gained while they were there. There's a line I have written down here. Freedom is not the absence of work. It's the presence of alignment. I think it sounds nice when people say, I just want to make enough money that I can go put my toes in the sand and not have another care in the world. I remember a time where I had gone through a project. I had spent like 3 years on this project, grinding, burning the midnight oil. And I remember when we exited that, and I literally had nothing to do. I had no one to answer to. I had no obligations. We took the family on a vacation, and I remember after 2 weeks, I felt like a worthless bum. like what is my purpose? What am I doing? Like what's next, right? And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the downtime, but it is interesting when people understand what their purpose is, when they find that. I mean, you kind of hit your alignment, right? The presence of alignment, right? Your freedom is, this isn't work. This is a mission. This is what I was called to do, as we say it, when people have found that freedom of purpose.
You can only lay in your hammock on the beach for so long before it's like, what am I doing here, right?
Yeah.
No, I love that example. Last year, my son and I was able to go on a HXP trip to Costa Rica. So it was a humanitarian experience while vacationing in Costa Rica, right? So, we were able to go surfing and go slide down slide down waterfalls. It was fantastic. But that was just, on the weekends. But during the week, we worked hard. We were group number 5 of 6 and helping build a school. It was life-changing, number one. They don't have any devices and they're focused on working and serving. And then they get to meet these kids that they're building the school for. Being able to be in alignment of having that purpose while going out and having fun. It was awesome.
Sounds like a dream. The other component, though, that I wanted to highlight and not skip out on is when this gentleman learned from the story I shared, when he figured out how he could free his time, it was a byproduct of the systems that were installed, right? And so when systems are introduced, and this, by the way, is not just in business, right? It can be family. It can be in the community, the way you serve in the community, and most definitely it is business related. But when systems are present, it multiplies the opportunity for additional capital or revenue. It multiplies time. And I don't know if you've ever felt this, but when you have introduced a new system or process into your organization and it takes, and you have total buy-in from people, does it not make you want to go do that times 100? You can feel, it's tangible. It's a palpable feeling of, well, I'm free. I have time now to work on the 30,000-foot view of your business instead of feeling obligated to do it by yourself.
Jason, I love that, because you thinking about investors, right? They're starting on their journey. They want to buy a business. They don't know how. It's pretty daunting to look at, well, if I go do this, how much more time am I going to have to spend managing that, right? The concept of putting those processes in place, getting the right people and getting the right teams working on what they do best, and then the processes around that.
Well, and strategy is so important. It reminds me of kind of the conversations that we've had this year regarding my position, right? Q1 was so much about reaching out to potential investors by phone and email. And we got some traction and some relationship development, but it wasn't quite where we wanted to be. So Q2, readjusting strategy, focusing on more stuff in person, face to face. We've seen a whole different set of relationships forms, just by adjusting that strategy and that approach change. It's a huge change for our company.
What would you say to somebody who's sitting there right now and thinking, yeah, but my situation's just different, or they don't understand that, I have to be in the grind right now, or I'm in startup mode and this doesn't apply to me. What would you say to that person who might be thinking I'm just different and it's not going to work for me?
They'll be saying the same thing in 5 years from now. Having full control does not mean less risk, number one. And it also doesn't mean that you're going to succeed, but having higher chances. In fact, getting those processes in place that are proven that are going to work increases the chance of success. I don't even know if there's a number. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. The ones that try to do everything on them by themselves, they're going to be doing the same thing in 5 years.
I would just echo that too. Those core fundamentals, it doesn't matter what your situation is or how different you think you are. If you follow those core fundamentals, that's really the foundation for success. So it's is there going to be an excuse for why you're not where you want to be? Or is it going to be extreme ownership and saying, yeah, I'll follow this philosophy and make it happen? That's what I would say those people.
Yeah. Talking about just money fundamentals, if someone said to you, I'll start saving once I start earning real money,
mm-hmm.
Right? What they miss is even if it's just a little bit, think about the impact if someone started saving when they were 12 years old and just religiously put 20% of whatever they made aside, even if it was 20 cents,
yeah,
right? Just that deliberate, consistent process, right? It's a system that he gets into, what that person will have when they retire. Let's say it's 70, 65, whatever it is, versus someone who says at age 50, okay, now I'm making money, I'm going to start saving. There's no comparison.
Yeah. That's impactful. And it would be fun to sit in front of somebody with a calculator and show them the power of what that looks like, for like a 12-year-old.
Right. The power of consistent,
Yeah.
effort over time compounds.
Well, but relating it back to the business owner that's just in the thick of things, if not now, when?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to make a change, maybe it's, I don't know what change to make. Well, that's the beauty of bringing others in that have trudged the path before, right? I think this concept of expanding one's vision of what you're wanting to accomplish and scale by bringing others in that are experts at what they do. Yeah, it might be a different slice of the pie, but I tell you, the pie gets a whole lot bigger.
Yeah. There's an exercise that I used to do with people. I do it in work, in a business that I was running. I would do it with different department heads, or I would, consult other companies and would have the same exercise with business owners. And I'd ask them, if you had a magic wand, what would you do today? And how would you change whatever it is? You ask them, you encourage them. This is blue sky. This is magical. This is not realistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But get out of your rut, right? Get out of this place that you're in of, I can't, right? I'm different. My situation's unique, or I can't save yet because I don't have enough money. Well, if you had a magic wand, what does that look like? And it gets them out of that fog and allows them to start thinking freely.
Mm-hmm.
And then the beauty of, well, we're actually not that far from a few of those things, right? Because if you've ever studied a P&L, and I love reviewing P&Ls because I'm always looking for ways to improve them. How can I get 1% better on each of my line items of my expenses? Or how do I justify, the cost of certain things? You can typically find enough in your P&L to justify an expense that you're afraid to make,
Mm-hmm.
or a hire that you're afraid to bring on, because the money's not there. Again, you the exercise of just come out of the trench for a minute. We talk about clarity breaks, and we talk about, moments of sharpening the blade. That's what these are for, is to get out and just wave the magic wand. What would this look like if I had everything I ever wanted?
Mm-hmm.
And then get back in there and put the boxing gloves back on and keep going for more.
That's kind of like the EOS accountability chart. You build what the organization, all the roles would be, even if as an entrepreneur you're doing all of them, right? But getting those right seats, so to speak, in place, so as you grow and scale, you can start plugging people in to where.
How many different buckets was your name on, Rich, when you first did that?
Well, it was all of them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, but it's not even unfortunate, right? But again, the power of visualization. If you put that on paper and you look at it and you go, whoa, I am wearing a lot of hats, right? And you're Superman, right? You can do it for how long? I think that the visualization of that exercise is impactful.
So on this time component, freeing up time and, in that sense with us, whether it's a small business owner or whoever it is that's wanting to invest in real estate or private equity, but they're having a hard time freeing up that time. Some books are, who, not how, and 10X is easier than 2X. And it's the concept of, once you look at that organizational chart, the magic happens when you say, okay, of all of the time I'm spending doing activities, what activities are worth my hourly rate? If you set your hourly rate at $5 an hour, it's probably no difference. But if you have, let's say you set your hourly rate at $5,000 an hour, doesn't that change the whole concept of what you're looking at? And if you're doing an activity that you could pay someone less than that, why in the world are you doing it? I've heard a lot of times people use the $25 an hour, right? When you go through the organizational chart at the very beginning and you have your name on every single one, 25 makes sense, right? Because you're saying, well, this is $25 an hour work. 20% of your time is delivering 80% of the results of your business, right? If that Pareto principle works. Well, if you go through and analyze that and say, what's of this, the 20%, and you carve that out and put it over here, and then you say, okay, out of these activities, what's the 20% that delivers 80% of that right there? You do that 3 or 4 times, you're at $5,000 an hour work. To get things done and execute, that's the level I think you should be looking at.
So what I hear you saying, Rich, is that they ought to spend some time in front of a dry erase board and writing down
the whiteboard, yeah.
writing down all of the processes and all the activities and all the assignments they're over, and find that 20%.
Yeah. Always focus on what's the 20% of activities that are delivering the most benefit to the organization.
And really, that's where they want to spend their time.
That's where they should be spending their time. Anything outside of that is less than $5,000 an hour work.
I love that.
Well, and that principle has served Epic Capital so much. You've implemented that, and look how the business has grown in the last 2 years. There's 2 new team members here. Also, we have Tatiana, our executive assistant.
Yeah.
The business has grown and changed so much. So that is a testimonial to how that visualization process works and how much it's changed our company.
And I can't wait for our EOS quarterly on Friday to dive into that even further.
It'll be good to see that change. We're talking about power of the visualization, standing in front of a whiteboard or a chalkboard, or, maybe you're an iPad guy, and putting it on paper and seeing it, I think, is what really will create the change within, so that the person that's sitting there thinking, I'm different, this isn't going to work for me. I challenge you to try it. Get out there for a minute and just try it and see what change happens internally. I think that was wildly helpful.
Have you ever heard someone say, well, I'm too busy to take the time to do that?
Oh, yeah.
So what would you say to them? I look at those who do go through the effort of doing that. And once they've gone through it, their comments are, I can't afford not to at that point. And, someone can be so busy. We all have 24 hours in the day. I don't care who we are. And maybe it's fear. They're afraid that if they go through the process, they'll actually have to give up some control or, do something different than what they're really doing.
We had a meeting yesterday where she said, I'm afraid that I'm going to find out that it's me, that I'm the problem.
That's right.
I got excited when I heard her say that, because I thought, how empowering will that be to at least know? And guess what? If you're the problem, so what? Like, I've always been a huge fan of identifying the problem. I don't care who it is or what it is. I want to know, or why it is. I want to know what the problem is so we can solve it.
And she has the power to become the solution too.
And she's wildly successful already.
Oh, yeah.
But it was interesting when she made that comment of, I'm afraid if I sit down and do this, that I'm going to find out that it's me. And I thought, isn't that empowering? Like,
definitely.
Like, delegation comes in, right? It's not a bad thing. The freedom formula really consists of capital and time. And in order to make both of those things work for you, you've got to have the presence of systems. Systems should create more revenue, should create more capital, and it should free up your time so that you have achieved this level of freedom. And for us, that freedom formula is really the core of our mission of helping people identify, or not identify, but helping people achieve their freedom of purpose through different vehicles of investments.
Love it.
Thank you for listening to this Epic Investor podcast. We hope that it's been informational for you. We encourage you to invite your friends, share the link, spread the good word with everybody. And we'd love to hear your experiences where the freedom formula has set you free and allowed you to achieve your freedom of purpose.